Only 10 players have scored 70 points or more in an NBA game. These players are Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, David Thompson, David Robinson, Kobe Bryant, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, and Luka Dončić. These players are all good scorers, but they aren't necessarily the top 10 scorers. This got me thinking. What type of an NBA player can score over 70 points? What circumstance should they be in to do it, and who's going to do it next? This video will be split into two different parts. This video I'll analyze the players' games, and next video I'll make a prediction using the data I gathered. How am I going to do it, you may ask? The way I can make an accurate prediction on who's going to score 70 next is by trying to find out what type of a player can score 70. I'm going to measure this by finding the average points per game, minutes played, and field goals attempted by each of these players. To find out what circumstances this player has to be in, I'm going to look at each of the players I listed 70-point games and the last time they played against a team they dropped 70 on. I'm doing this to see if anything changed from one game to another, other than their scoring outbursts. The stats I'm going to use to compare this are their usage rates, the opposing team's defensive rating, and the pace of the game. Let's get started. Also, I didn't have enough data for Wilt and Elgin Baylor because they didn't have enough stats from their games. I'm going to start with David Thompson. David Thompson scored 73 points on the 9th of April 1978 against the Detroit Pistons. The previous game David Thompson played against this team, he dropped 30 and had a usage rate of 30%, which is fairly high. The opposing team had a defensive rating of 133.7, and there were 86 possessions in the game, which means the game was moving at a quick pace. The next time David Thompson played the Pistons, he dropped 73. His usage rate was 50% higher than his last outing against the team, and the opposing team had a much worse defensive rating at 159.3. The game also consisted of 86 possessions, meaning the only factors helping him score more were the defense and how he was being utilized on the floor. Now that we know what circumstances he had to be in to score this many points, now we need to find out how skilled he was as a player. In the season where David Thompson scored 73, he averaged 27.2 points per game whilst playing 37.2 minutes a night and chalking up 19.8 shots a game. Moving on to our next player. David Robinson scored 71 points on the 24th of April 1994 against the LA Clippers. In his previous game against the Clippers, he had another impressive showing, putting up 41 points. He also had a usage rate of 29%, and the Clips defense was 168.2. 72 possessions were played in the game. The next time he played against the Clippers, he dropped 71 points, with a usage rate of 53%. He surprisingly faced harder defense though, with the opposing team having a defensive rating of 137.6. The game consisted of 81 possessions. Moving on to his individual stats. That season, David Robinson was able to put up 29.8 points per game, 40.5 minutes per game, and attempted 20.7 field goals a game. Moving on to one of the most beloved NBA players, Kobe Bryant. On the 22nd of January, Kobe scored 81 points against the Toronto Raptors. In his previous game against the Raptors, he only dropped 11 points, with a usage rate of 30%, as well as the opposing team having a defensive rating of 149.9, and the game consisted of 68 possessions. The next time Kobe versed the Raptors, he destroyed them, scoring 81 points, with a usage rate of 57%. The Toronto Raptors having a defensive rating of 168.1, and the game consisted of 72 possessions. That season, Kobe averaged 35.4 points per game, 41 minutes a night, and 27.2 field goals attempted every single game. Moving on to a player who admired Kobe, Devin Booker. Book scored 70 points against the Boston Celtics on the 24th of March 2017, becoming the youngest person to do so. The last time Book versed the Celtics, he had a usage rate of 20.83%. The Celtics had a defensive rating of 153.7, and they played through 71 possessions. The next time he played the Celtics, he scored 70 points with a usage rate of 49.94%. The Celtics had a defensive rating of 171.5, and played 69.97 possessions. That season, Devin Booker averaged only 22.1 points whilst playing 35 minutes and taking 18.3 shots a game. The final few players are pretty recent, starting with Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell dropped 71 points on the 2nd of January 2023 against the Bulls. In his last outing against the Bulls, Mitchell had a usage rate of 29.34%. The defense rating of the Bulls was 141.8, and they played through 72.64 possessions. The next time he suited up against the Bulls, he dropped 71 with a usage rate of 38.62%. The Bulls had a defensive rating of 217.9, and they played through 66 possessions. That season, Mitchell averaged 28.3 points, 35.8 minutes a game, and 20.6 field goals attempted every single night. Moving on to Damian Lillard. Lillard put up 71 points on the 26th of February against the Rockets. In his previous matchup against the Rockets, Dame had a usage rate of 33.85%. His opposing team had the defensive rating of 154.7, and the game consisted of 69 possessions. The next time he suited up against the Rockets, he dropped 71 with a usage rate of 53.9%. The Rockets had a defensive rating of 217.9, and they played through 65 possessions. That season, Lillard averaged 32.2 points, 36.3 minutes, and 20.7 field goals attempted. Moving on to our next player, Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid scored 70 points on the 22nd of January 2024 against the San Antonio Spurs. In his previous game against the Spurs, he had a usage rate of 68.61%, and the Spurs had a defensive rating of 198.2. 69 possessions were played in the game. The next time he played the Spurs, he dropped 70 points with a usage rate of 57.01%. He faced harder defense though, with the opposing team having a defensive rating of 189.5. The game consisted of 70 possessions. Moving on to his individual stats. That season, Joel Embiid was able to put up 34.7 points per game, off 33.6 minutes a night, and attempting 21.8 field goals. Finally, moving on to Luka Dončić. Dončić scored 73 points on the 27th of January 2024 against the Atlanta Hawks. In his previous game against the Hawks, Luka had a usage rate of 68.61%. The opposing team had a defensive rating of 198.2, and they played 69 possessions. In his next outing, Luka dropped 73 points. He had a usage rate much lower than last time at 42.67%. The Hawks had a defensive rating of 222.6, and they played 72 possessions. Moving on to Luka's individual stats. Luka averaged 33.9 points, 37.5 minutes, and took 23.6 shots a game that season. Thanks for watching. I'll release part 2 of this video soon. If this video can hit 100 likes, I'll drop part 2 early. Make sure to subscribe and comment your thoughts on the video below. Thank you very much.